Just as important as what CSS and JS is what CSS and JS is not. And what I want to stress in this section is that style components with React is not an implementation of inline styles. So let's get started and show why inline styles are not ideal. Most who have worked on an application have probably dealt with something like this. You have a button component and it works really well. This button component by default is red. You can click it, it's a button. It works just like you'd expect. This button happens to be using inline styles. So we see here this style prop, this background color, and red. So this will make a red button. If we want to change the color of this button, we might go about it by using CSS. So we'll import our CSS, we'll apply this class name of button. The CSS right here is targeting this button selector, and we're saying we would like this background color to be blue. So we're attempting to override this pretty great button that we really like, but we don't like the red, and we want to make this button blue. So, as you can see, our attempt failed. We click this button, our button still works, but our button's still red. It's not blue like we expected. If at first you don't succeed, try again. So what we're being bitten by here is what is known as CSS specificity rules. So even though what we've written is perfectly valid CSS, this background color of blue should normally work, the inline style background color of red is more specific and is therefore winning out. So we can definitely fix this with an exclamation point important, and we're effectively kind of hacking CSS and saying that we know this rule is more important than the rule that is currently applied, so use this rule instead. And this works. Our button component is now fixed. This previously red button component has been overridden with CSS with an important hack, and our button is now blue. And we can call it a day and celebrate. However, this is kind of not ideal. We've effectively, by starting our button component with an inline style, put our consumers of this button kind of at the mercy of our implementation. So we're basically saying we're choosing the most specific way to style this button, and we're basically making it extremely hard for any consumer of this button to extend and to use it in any way they choose. So even if this button is extremely useful and extremely powerful, we can't style it very easily, and this is not ideal. Additionally, inline styles are just not as powerful as CSS. In particular, one key way is interactivity. So let's say that we really like this button, but that we want our button to have a hover state so that our users know that this button is interactive and can be clicked. In CSS, we can do this really easily with the pseudo style. :hover basically means that this button will have a background color of white when it's hovered. Of course, we can check this out, and this works just fine. Next, let's consider media queries. So media queries are a hallmark and a tenet of responsive web design. It's basically a way that you can easily use CSS to responsively flow your application between small, medium, and large breakpoints, changing and shifting elements around along the way. So a really common question is, how will I do this with inline styles? And the answer, unfortunately, is you can't. Inline styles are not as powerful as CSS, and this is also just not really ideal. Additionally, there is a required cognitive shift between writing CSS and between writing an inline style with CSS and JS. So on the top, we have this CSS. We're targeting a class name of button, and we're setting up some various rules. Background dash color of blue, color of white, text dash align of center. It's basically all one big string, and it's using what is called dasherized notation. Background dash color, text dash transform, etc. This is the CSS that most of us have written throughout our careers. Next, we have an inline style utilizing a JavaScript style object. So you'll see that the keys here are denoted using camel case notation. Background capital C color. Additionally, the values need to be encoded in strings. It isn't just one big string. It basically is bound by the rules of the JavaScript interpreter. If this wasn't bound in strings, we would get blue is undefined because blue doesn't have any special meaning in JavaScript, the string blue is what we mean when we're setting the background color to blue. So basically, when you're writing an inline style, you need to think additionally about writing your style in a JavaScript friendly way so that you won't get compile time errors. And you'll also need to think differently about how we target our rules. So it's not background dash color, it's background camel case color. And really, the overarching message of this section is that we can do better. Inline styles are not the end all be all of CSS and JS implementations. It has become increasingly evident that inline styles have some significant drawbacks. And so now that we know what CSS and JS is not, we can now shift to actual real-world usage of CSS and JS and get to actually developing utilizing the latest CSS and JS techniques that are not inline styles, utilizing the powerful tandem of styled components and React.